Hey team, Richard Greer here. We're here for a Team CP Q&A podcast with Cushla. Q&A with Cushla tonight. Cushla is our resident dietitian. How are you getting on tonight, Cushla?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Rich.
Fantastic, awesome. So we're gonna we've got a few different topics we're gonna jump around and chat about. But if you're out there and logging into this, feel free to basically throw anything at us. Keen to have a bit of a basically share Kushla's depth of knowledge, all things nutrition. So if this can be helpful for you, this is a great opportunity to sort of make the most of this time as well. So fire your questions in. If you can put your name next to it, that'll be great as we see them come through. But yeah, looking forward to sort of sharing some knowledge and sharing some learning around the place, and hopefully might even help me go faster in the 𝗖𝗑 100 miler in a few weeks' time, Kushla.
Yeah, that's looming for you. Hopefully we can, give some magic tricks tonight.
That's right. I could do with a couple of magic tricks towards the finish line of being out there for far too long. What about you? What have you been up to lately?
What have I been up to? Well, I'm back into a bit of a block of training, hopefully leading towards 𝗖𝗑, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, that's my main focus at the moment. Other than that, I'm enjoying the spring weather, getting out in the sunshine. And yeah, really enjoying work at the moment too. So
nice. That's good, and that's good for a dietitian as well to sort of practice what you preach around getting out and about that. You did 𝗖𝗑 last year; it's a big day out, and to I guess test some of those nutritional things that you talk to people about is how do I feel doing that? Can I eat that much food? How much fluid can I actually get on board, etc.
A plan always looks great on paper. But the plan in practice can look quite different. And I think having, like any of us, having those lived experiences of the challenges you have along the way is really important to understand how tricky it can be.
Yeah, that's right. And the more of those experiences you have, the more you can sort of, I guess, relate to different people's experiences, but go, oh, well, actually that worked that time and that didn't work that time, and why might that be as well? And that's a key part of it too, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. So we're going to kick off with sort of almost steering away a little bit from the sport nutrition sort of side of things, talking about events, but actually sort of into the energy distribution stuff, into the health and wellness side of things in terms of snacking and balancing our energy so we can train well and not have those big ups and downs and dips and things throughout your day. So, I mean, you talk about this a lot in your day in terms of your work that you do. That energy distribution stuff is massive, isn't it, for all of us, really? What are some key things that, from your perspective, that we should be thinking about along those lines?
Yeah, you're so right. I think one of the most common things I would be speaking to people about, and I guess a common mistake, is how people spread their energy and protein through the day. It's like 90% of the people I see, it's not well spread at all. And what we tend to see is, breakfast is this tiny little bowl of cereal or a piece of toast. Lunch is hit and miss, maybe a bit of sushi or something very unplanned. And then dinner, 80% of their food intake's happening between 5 and 8 p.m. at night. And the issue with that for both athletes or non-athletes is it can lead to some health issues. But also if you're looking at an athlete who's training, 1 to 2 hours in the morning, potentially fasted, and then not fueling well after that or through the morning, there's a complete mismatch between the energy available and when it's needed. And that in itself can actually lead to things like low energy availability, regardless of if they're hitting their total energy for the day. So you can run into a lot of problems there.
Yeah. And I guess the first of all thing we need to come back to is why? Why do we do this? I mean, we tend to get up in the morning, we'll just say full of beans, and we're going to have a really great day today. So we'll start off with this little bowl of cereal because that'll be good. And then I won't overeat. But then it just sort of falls to pieces the further down the day we get. Is that sort of a common thing from your perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I don't think people get up, well, not necessarily. They don't always get up and go, I'm going to have a tiny breakfast on purpose. Yeah. I think it's almost just ingrained in us, isn't it? That like the last meal of the day is our big meal. It's our hot, roast beef and veggies or whatever else. And that's our main meal of the day. But really all your meals through the day should be pretty equal in terms of the energy and protein. I don't know. It's probably a few different reasons. I think for some people it's a planning and organization factor, which is very common to lead to nutritional issues in people who aren't organized with nutrition. Time, you know, trying to run out the door with getting your kids ready and things, and then suddenly your nutrition's not so important because you're worried about everyone else. Just not understanding as well, like how much you actually need around sessions, and that you should be front loading your day a little bit more. So I think, like, you know, discussions even like tonight, or having people who come and see me, they're like, wow, I actually need a lot more than what I thought in the day. And a really common question I like to ask, and a good one to ask everyone who's listening right now, would be, you know, if you had your breakfast for your main meal of the day for dinner, would you say that that's an adequate meal? And often I hear people go, oh God, no. It's like a piece of toast or a, you know, cup of cereal. So it's a good question to ask yourself.
Nice, to get yourself started in your day. And what happens with metabolism in that regard? So, like, we often talk about that in regards to getting your body revved up and digesting things and on the go. Is that a thing still? Do we still talk about that metabolism and the way that you burn energy throughout the day?
Well, I think if you're getting up and expecting your body to run well after, you know, fasting for 10 or 12 hours, and you're starting your working day or going off to a training session, do you really think your body is going to be functioning that well when it's got nothing to really run off? Like, no, it's not. So it's about putting in the right ingredients to get out the right output, isn't it? Like to work your best at work, or to train well, perform well. And with regards to metabolism, like if we're thinking about what I said before with the low energy availability, when your body's in a really stressed state of low energy, it does actually start to try and utilize less energy. And we see that in all sorts of symptoms as a result of that, you know, like women losing their menstrual cycle, or people being really fatigued, or sleep disturbances, our bowels slow down. Like, they're all the consequences we see of our body trying to conserve energy. So yes, in severe cases, it does impact that.
Yes. I had a client, he's a dairy farmer, and he had a packet of Oreo biscuits that he had at the top of the cupboard. And I thought it was very impressive, actually. And his job, it was goal for himself, was to keep that packet of Oreo biscuits at the top of the cupboard and not eat them during calving and things, which is very impressive. And apparently he got through, but someone else might have found them, so they kind of got opened. But that's part of it as well, in terms of just, okay, well, you talk about the energy distribution in the main meals, but what about snacks and things like that as well? Do we need to ban the biscuit, or what are some go-to things we should be thinking along those lines?
Well, you'll be happy to hear I don't think we should ban anything. I think all food serves a purpose somewhere along the line. When it comes to snacking, what I asked people first is, are your main meals adequate enough? Because people who are snacking a lot or grazing, it's often an issue of the meals not being satisfying enough, and therefore a few hours later they're really hungry, or they've got cravings because their meal had like no protein in it, which is unsurprising really, because the body's just not satisfied or getting what it needs. So first and foremost, okay, look at the main meals. Are they evenly spread? Is there enough protein going in? Is there enough carbohydrate to actually feel satisfied and perform well? And then snacking is individual. Some people just don't snack, that's fine. But some people who have really high energy needs, or maybe people who just can't tolerate eating a large quantity of food at main meals, tend to then do a little bit better with snacks through the day. And I think the key thing with snacks is, it's okay to have a cookie with a cup of tea now and again. Absolutely. I enjoy that. But again, if you're trying to feel satisfied, maybe have the cookie with something that's actually going to fulfill your nutrient needs. Like, okay, have that alongside something with a bit of protein or some healthy fat, so that you can actually get to your next main meal without reaching for another 3 cookies.
Yeah, that's right. I had a glass of milk with mine this afternoon, which I thought was quite good. I unfortunately went for a second cookie and a second glass of milk, which I thought was okay, sort of balancing each other out. But thought that was better than just delving into the biscuits. Yeah,
and you're getting hydration, you're getting protein and calcium. So hey.
Yep, cool. We'll claim that. That's good. Just for those that are out there that have just tuned in, this is a Q&A session with Cushla, so I want this to be sort of an open forum for you guys to ask questions and hopefully learn some stuff. We have a question come through from Duncan, actually, and I'll read it out. So Cushla's nutrition advice recently helped me through a 3-day specialist group selection, which I believe Duncan has just finished, like just today. My question is, however, on the last day, had a horrible, what felt like reflux and couldn't seem to get anything down. So that's after 3 days. So that's starting at like 4 or 5 in the morning and finishing like at 1 at night was probably Saturday. And then, I don't know, what's that? Maybe Sunday, and then doing something again today on Monday. Any ideas? This is a little bit along the same lines as that whole sort of adventure racing side of things, when we're going like a bit of sleep deprivation. We've been out there for a long time and just struggling to get stuff down, and that whole reflux starts getting worse and worse. What are your thoughts there?
Firstly, well done, Duncan. That sounds like an ordeal.
Yeah, pretty huge. Looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah, my goodness. Reflux, very common gastro issue. It's basically that sensation of feeling like something's coming back up and it really burns your esophagus. And it can be caused by many different things. When it comes to nutrition, there's a few common culprits involved, and often it's if we're eating really large meals that leave us feeling uncomfortably full, and it's just not very pleasant. But also if the large meal is, say, before we go to bed, or too soon before we go to bed, and then we're lying down, because the little trapdoor that sits at the top of our stomach, it can be a bit faulty sometimes. And when we lie down, sometimes some of that food can more easily come back up. So being aware of the size and close to when you're the time before you lie down. Then with foods, things like coffee, caffeine, alcohol, they are also not great for reflux. Not that you'd be consuming alcohol and things before doing something like that, but caffeine definitely. Really high fat foods or spicy food can also be culprits. So that's kind of the nutrition side of it. And then when it comes to, I guess, lifestyle factors, like if you're on an intense 3-day course, massive days, like sleep's probably not going to be great. When our body's really sleep deprived and under significant stress, whether it's physical stress or other things going on, again, that can really affect our digestion. Things don't work as well. And if food's not moving through the stomach as well, it can sit in our stomach a lot longer, and then we can have issues with reflux from that too. So
do we think about that a little bit, like that whole adrenaline thing? And you've got like, is like if you're exercising, all the blood's going elsewhere, nothing to your digestive system. If you're under stress and you haven't slept much and you're just kind of on your last legs, that same sort of thing's happening again. Your whole digestive system's just slowing down, and it's, as you say, like things aren't just moving through quite the same.
Yeah, we talk about the expression of rest and digest. It has truth behind it. So when we're resting and calm, digestion works well, things are all smooth. But when we're really stressed and running off cortisol and adrenaline, our gut is one of the first things to pack a sad. I like to say the gut is a very sulky organ and it packs a sad very easily. So if you're throwing stress and everything else at it, there is often side effects of that. And again, very commonly, people have irritable bowel syndrome, and an underlying factor of many of those people is anxiety and stress.
Yeah, which happens a lot out there, doesn't it? And it's something that we sort of just kind of, battle on, dig deeper, just go harder, just carry on. So like, I guess relating to that situation with Duncan, or those that are under stress, or those that are doing events that last multiple days and they're under pressure and maybe not slept as much, what are some ideas of sort of food options or fluid or that we could sort of go for in those specific situations to help us through?
Yeah, avoiding any of those foods I said are culprits for making it worse, and having little and often with both food and fluids will help not only keep the blood flowing to your digestive tract, but also not leaving you feel really full and uncomfortable, which can be great. In terms of from an adventure racing perspective, I am also conscious of what people consume before they're in certain positions. So say you're about to get in or on a bike for a while and you might be leaning forward, or even in more endurance racing, elite stuff where you're in the aero position, like be mindful of what you're consuming directly before that, because even that position in itself will make you more susceptible to having reflux. So I think that's an important consideration. And if all else fails and you can't control how stressed you are and you just need some relief, well, using things like, 𝗂𝗏 can be wonderful just to help ease the symptoms. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Good work. Just for those out there that have just tuned in, Q&A with Cushla. Let us know if you've got any questions that you'd like me to throw at Cushla and sort of help you out with that. It's a bit of an open forum just to answer sort of anything that is top of mind. So maybe we just jump back into the 𝗖𝗑 100 miler, Cushla. We talked about that right at the start. Can you help me out?
I feel like you're wanting some free advice here, Rich.
I feel like I thought I could make the most of this opportunity. Just sort of buying some time for those people that might want to ask another question, but thought I might try and help myself out a little bit as well. I've got no idea how long it's going to take me, probably 10 to 12 hours-ish or something like that to ride 160 miles up and down and around the forest in Rotorua. Any sort of key things that you would say towards maybe the back end of the event that might be able to help me out a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I can't say I've ever ridden that far on a mountain bike.
You've probably run that far though, haven't you? From a out there on your feet perspective.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and we've talked about this before. I think having options is important, and not just options, work, but all sorts of things, and also just foods that might be a morale boost. When you're 10 hours deep in an event and you're kind of sick of everything you have, you need to keep fueling. That's a great time where you might just have something that isn't necessarily the ideal sports fuel, but it's going to give you that mental boost, and you've been looking out for it, hanging out for it. So that can be helpful to look forward to and enjoy. Caffeine timed appropriately can be really valuable in that back end of the race. So never start your caffeine too early. Try and hold off for the last third if you can, because that's where it's really going to give you the extra oomph factor. And then just not overdoing it. So trying to sort of trickle it in evenly over that last part of the race can be great, because the fatigue factor will be very high. Yeah, caffeine.
Okay. So and like NoDoz tablets, would you go for those, like that 50 gram? If they go 50 or 100 milligrams?
100.
Yes.
Yeah. If you've practiced them, yes, they are a hefty dose compared to what you'd have in a lot of sports nutrition supplements. Like a lot of gels are between about 25, 30, sometimes 50. So they are a bit heftier. But if you can tolerate maybe 2 spread over a few hours amongst a few caffeinated gels or Cliff Blocks and things, then they would be a pretty efficient way of getting it in.
So probably that brings me to my last little point there. Maybe the pros and cons of custard squares, Cushla. If you take the pros line and I'll take the cons, like what would your top 3 pros to custard squares be as a fuel for sport nutrition? I feel like I've set you up here. I would probably.
Is this a stitch up?
Yeah, and I'll try and debate the negatives, for potential negatives for custard squares. Go.
Okay, 1 might be a great morale boost for you in the old 𝗖𝗑.
Right. Okay. Yep. Okay. So good. That's good. That's selling it to me. What have you got? Another couple?
2. Speaking of energy distribution, it would certainly have some energy density to it. So adventure racing, energy density is helpful.
Yes. So you're thinking pastry and custard there.
Yep. And sugar. And third, maybe. Well, it's usually quite rich in dairy with the custard, so I suppose a custard square would be not a bad source of calcium.
Okay, there we are. Good. So you haven't just gone from the sports specific line. You've just talked about custard square as a something to eat during your day. I like it. So it's source of calcium. Negatives, I guess, potential negatives, if we were to think of any, could be they're too tasty and you could have too much at once. That could be an issue, and therefore cause gastric sort of upset your body. What else? Maybe too high in fat if you had too much pastry in there. Therefore, that could cause a bit of problem, especially if you're going too hard at the same time. So hopefully you need to be aware of that.
Might lead to that reflux. Yeah,
it could lead to that reflux, etc. So that might be more important for Duncan to eat earlier on in his selection opposed to the last day. And probably the other one is it's hard to share across the square sometimes. So it could cause some fights. So you've got to be careful of that in terms of potential negatives with eating custard squares. So I guess there's my 3 possible negatives, and you've got some great positives there, Cushla. So I guess you who are listening to this could be the judge.
You have a wealth of experiences with packing them. How do you package your custard square when you're running up a mountain?
Well, that's part of the fun of it, actually, because it is the most inappropriate food to possibly actually try and carry up a hill. It was not a planned thing. Just one day I went into the dairy, couldn't really find anything else, and I thought, oh, I'll grab a couple of custard squares. Like, it is good to buy someone else a custard square, so then you can sort of compare and how well you look after your custard square. Sometimes if you end up licking the paper, well, then that's okay. But yeah, if it's carried inside a bit of a cup or something like that, if you're tramping, or hey, it still tastes pretty tasty, as you say, towards the back end of an event when you need a little bit of a morale booster.
Realistically, you're not actually going to take one in the waka though, are you?
It's just the fact that we have to give the gear bag, the bag for the aid stations the night before, and it's going to be out there all day waiting for me. So that's the key challenge. So if anyone's out there and is sort of loitering around and sort of happy to hold a custard square in a chili bin, well, that would be good. Let's talk. Yeah. As I say, like towards the end, you'll just eat anything if you're that hungry. So hopefully we won't get to that point. But if that's not the case, well, the finish line would still be a good place for one.
But in all seriousness, though, with a morale food, do practice it, because you don't want to get to 2 hours to go on a massive event and have it then lead to stomach upset. So like we always say, train as you would race, and don't try anything new on race day.
That's right. And I think as part of that, like once you're working, you work for hours and hours and hours, sort of beyond 6 hours, it feels like for me, then you're not working as hard anymore. So you can kind of stomach a bit more. And obviously riding the bike's different from running as well. So you don't have the jiggling up and down. So yes, practice it. And then it sort of depends on that duration and intensity, and how you're moving to will affect what you can actually get down.
That is definitely the benefit of biking. You can stomach a lot more.
Yes, exactly.
Easily. Yeah.
Nice work. Oh, they're moist as well. I have to write that down because they go down well. This Q&A with Cushla feels like I've kind of taken over a little bit. I apologize for that, but we have done well, I think, just in terms of that energy distribution where we talked about at the start, haven't we? And then in terms of that whole what happens that when we're out there for a long length of time in regards to that reflux that Duncan talked about. Anything else that you'd like to wrap up with, Cushla, before we head away?
Did we cover all the key points we wanted to?
I think so. Yeah, I think we did well in terms of the energy distribution stuff across the day, the protein intake side of things, the snacking and what type of snacks and things, and making sure that you can fill yourself up with a decent breakfast. So, and if you were swapping them around for your breakfast, eating them at your evening meal. So I think we've done well.
Nice, cool, okay,
good job.
Sweet, short and sweet.
Job done, Cushla. Well done. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys that are listening have found this useful. And until next time, look after yourself and enjoy getting back into that training, Cushla, and heading along to the 𝗄𝗏.
Yeah, thank you. All the best for Waka.
Good job. Take care. Thanks heaps.